Hey everyone, thanks for your support in 2024. We have a lot of cool stuff coming in 2025, and here are some of the things you can look forward to as we move into next year. In the lead up to The Mandalorian and Grogu in 2026, we'll be starting a full series rewatch of both The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett on exploring hyperspace lanes beginning in October. You can also expect a rewatch of Andor, and we will have reviews of every episode of Andor and the rest of the Skeleton Crew as those come out. Josie will be returning as we continue to rank every Star Wars thing released ever. Reviews of every episode of every Marvel Disney Plus show, including Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, The Eyes of Wakanda, Wonder Man, Ironheart, Daredevil Born Again, and Marvel Zombies, the day after each episode releases, will be available on Beware of Spoilers. We'll be having special event podcasts on 30-minute reviews for the Academy Awards, our 2024 year in review in early January, ranking all of Phase 5 of the MCU after Fantastic Four First Steps comes out, and our 10th anniversary special. Once we complete our rankings of all the Pokemon games on the backlog files, we'll be moving on to Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. Over on the YouTube channel, you can join in for playthroughs of Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, Pokemon White, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts Recoded, Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, Sonic Adventure 2, LEGO Racers 2, LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, and SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. Want to keep on top of all the new things we have coming? Subscribe at mwpnews.com, subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/@mwpnews, or subscribe to Beware of Spoilers, 30-minute reviews, exploring hyperspace lanes, and the backlog files on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, thank you for your support. Good evening and welcome to, what are we on? Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. Well, you know what? At least this is over. That's the nicest thing I can say about this whole endeavor. At least we're done with this. Because this is going to be about Kraven, but it's also broadly going to be about the Sony universe of Marvel characters. Sony's Marvel Studios legally can't stop us from making these movies, so we're going to make these Spider-Man villain movies. Which is one of those things that's like so ridiculous when you have so many Spider-Man characters. We'll get into that though. Kraven is not good. I would say Kraven is worse than Madam Web, because at least Madam Web had all the signs that this was kind of a movie made in post, something that this is missing. This feels more earnest, and I feel like that's a mistake. Like, that's a problem for this movie, because it feels like we designed it to look like this. This is how we wanted it to look, and there are things that just aren't good. Like, you know, it's like 2 hours long. It feels very long, and you have that just length to this movie, and it's just, you feel every minute of it, and yet every character feels underdeveloped. Like, I don't care anything about Kraven. I really couldn't care less about Calypso, and she's not really a lead, but kind of important, but they never really lay her out any, and it's weird, because they give her a really long time in the beginning to kind of lay her out as, like, this is going to be an important character, and then she's completely sidelined for most of the movie. Like, it's kind of weird. And then there's just, again, script issues. So many of these movies were just plagued with script issues, outside the Venom movies for some reason. But, like, we saw this in, like, Madam Web, we saw this in Morbius, but, like, here it's like, they make a point very early on that, like, no one calls him Kraven. Like, they just call him the Hunter. They don't, like, the name Kraven comes from, you know, he calls himself Kraven to people as he's gonna kill them. And it's like, okay, sure, fine. But then why is everyone calling him Kraven? If they make a point of saying, like, no one hears that name and lives, it's like, then how does everyone know the name Kraven? And then similarly, it's like at the end of the movie, there's a moment where Calypso fucking just murders the guy with the glasses who can, you know, put people into a trance state, like, she just straight up murders him. And, like, 'cause he's doing his 1, 2, 3 thing, but she interrupts him and kills him before, and she says, 3, motherfucker. And I'm like, you were never there for that. I mean, I guess you can, and the thing is, too, it's not like he's screaming it so everyone can hear. It's like he's kind of like standing on like 1, 2, and she's standing like a good 1.5 miles away from him. So like, how did she, like, it's just, it's little nitpicky shit like that that's just kind of all over this movie. Like, it's, I don't care about the father-son relationship. I don't care about the relationship with his family. The father's just an asshole the entire time through, and it's just like, it's never a twist when it turns out, oh look, the father's the bad guy. Like, oh wow, really? Who'd have thunk it? It's like you've been articulating that since, you know, square one of this movie. Like, the father's gonna be the bad guy. The father's gonna be the bad guy. It's dumb that anyone would think otherwise through this. And I'm watching this movie and I'm just like, why is this? How does this get made? Because, like, that's the thing, is that it's like, and I think that that's kind of the issue with a lot of this, is this question of, how did we get here? How did this movie get made? And then, why do we continue to get these movies with these glaring structural issues early on, and then it gets reshot? Because, like, again, this movie is Kraven the Hunter. This character does not feel like Kraven the Hunter. Like, the fundamentally, out of the gate, they fuck that up. Fundamentally, out of the gate, this character does not feel like Kraven. This is an entirely different character. To the point where I'm like, is there a character Animal Man for DC that maybe this was pitched as? Like, I feel like that's a thing, like, where it's like he can talk to animals and he kills poachers. It's like, it feels like they pitched this as like maybe Vixen, because that's what this feels more like. It feels more like Vixen than it does, you know, him. And it's like, and that's the thing too, is that it's like we're giving these powers to him, and I don't think we really need them, and the powers are never really well defined, where like he gets the blood of a lion mixed in, so he just has the power of all of the animals now. And it's also like that plus Calypso's potion thing, but also like that's never really explained, so it's like, alright, I guess, like, did the blood have anything to do with it, or was the blood just incidental contact? Like, it's just It's things like that throughout this entire movie from top to bottom. Now it's like, do a rewrite. Like, fucking, you don't have to go into production with the first draft of a script. Like, that's, you can rewrite it before you release it. Like, god damn, you don't need to just do this. And then it's like, clearly they try to fix it in post, and clearly it like, okay, cool, that's you know, that is something that gets done. Fuck me. Like, but at the same time, it's like, what made them think that this was a good idea? And like, look, if you want to make this movie, that's fine. If you want to continue making these, that's fine. You're gonna be losing money. So why are you continuing to bother, is my question. Why are you spending all this money on these enterprises that are just very clearly not working? Very clearly, this is not doing what you're intending. And that's a fundamental issue. At the end of the day, that is a fundamental issue with this movie. If you can't, like, and let's talk about why these movies don't work. Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery are meant to be a foil to him, as is any comic book character's Rogues Gallery. They are, by design, a vehicle to explore some personal weakness or, you know, physical weakness the hero has. So if you're doing a movie with, you know, with Batman, you're going to do a character who is like attacking some other part of him, like, and is going to be like that's what, you know, the intense love of justice that you get, you know, and the black and white justice is exacerbated and made into a villain in the form of Two-Face. Like, for Spider-Man, Kraven is this thing where it's like he is the ultimate hunter. He doesn't have powers. He's just here to try and hunt the most dangerous game, in this case, Spider-Man. giving him a backstory is not going to make it interesting. And that is fundamentally where this movie kind of fails. And where all these movies kind of fail. Like, they're here to be villains. They're here to be something that is going to be beaten up by the good guy by the end of the movie. I don't need to see an origin story for these characters. That's problem number one. Problem number two, they never actually are villains in these movies. And this is an issue that comes up with Black Adam as another one, where it's like, he never really kills anyone who's unambiguously not a bad guy. Like, there's never an ambiguity, there's never more, like, this is, everyone killed in that movie is clearly a bad guy. The same goes for this. The same goes for Morbius. The same goes for, Venom. The same goes for Madam Web. Everyone who is killed by the hero, or the protagonist, is unequivocally a bad guy. So, there's never a moral ambiguity. And I'll never forget, it was in the episode of In Review that they do over on Kinda Funny when they were talking about Black Adam, where it's like, I forgot who it was, one of the guys on there said, if you watch Captain America, the first Avenger, he kills a lot of, like, there's a scene in that where he leads with a gun, and he's walking into this Nazi camp with a gun, and he's just firing blindly at any Nazi who's in there. And it's like, at no point during that do you go, wow, he's an anti-hero, because he's killing people. It's like, no. Killing people is not the issue, it's who the hero is. The reason why the Punisher is an anti-hero is because the Punisher is killing low-level criminals a lot of the time, a lot of who would not get the death penalty for what they're doing. Like, and that is kind of what sets, and like, that's what makes the difference. These movies don't articulate that difference, though. And that's kind of where we are with this continuing issue, is that it's like, we know he's a bad guy, Kraven, because we have read the comics, because of Kraven's Last Hunt and all of these other things that have made this character into something worth making a movie about it. Because if it weren't for that, we wouldn't be sitting in the theater watching this movie. I mean, because if it was just a guy who had the animal powers, we probably wouldn't be watching it. And that I think is another thing. Like, the animal powers thing is so dumb because it takes away a lot from him in this, where it's like, one of the things that could make this character interesting is if he, like, they call him the hunter. He's the hunter. If you want to say he's such a good hunter because he knows the animals and can mimic their, who is it? Is it Russell Crowe who says that? Like, or is it the Rhino who says it? Who's like, he hunts like the animals in the forest, and it's like, well, yeah, but we don't really see, like, that's not something that he does, really, in the movie. It's like, he's doing that because he has the power of animals, but he's not doing that just because he has the, because he learned how to do that. Oh, you did it with all the things I taught you. It's like, well, no. Like, because he doesn't teach, like, how to, like, telepathically talk to animals. Like, that's not something that was taught. And it's like, he's, like, all the shit he's doing was definitely not taught to him by fucking Russell Crowe. That's the other thing, too, is that flashback comes way too early in the movie, to the point where I'm like, I don't remember what his first name was, and then it was only because it's like, they said his name was Dimitri. I was like, okay, well, Dimitri is clearly Chameleon. And that's the other thing, too, is that it's like, the big issue with a lot of these movies is that there's either something there that could be interesting, or there's something there that, that would be better in the next movie. Like, that was the big problem with Morbius that I had. Like, Morbius is, they're trying to condense this entire plot line into one movie, but, like, that relationship between him and the guy he fights in the movie, Matt Smith, would have been better if that was the third movie and we had time to build these characters up and they worked together and then they fell out and then there's emotional weight to it. You don't get that in the movie, so it doesn't work. And the same goes for, for this. It's like, this is the other way, where it's like, the interesting movie that we have here is Dimitri and Kraven facing off. Dimitri as the Chameleon and him facing off. That would be an interesting movie to watch. I would have enjoyed that movie. That is not what we got here, though. What we got is the lead up to that. And the lead up to that is fundamentally uninteresting. And that's another reason why these continue to not work. And why it's good they're kind of stopping to do this. And let's talk about what they should have done instead. Because to an extent, it's kind of what didn't work about Suicide Squad, the first one, not the second one. It's this idea that, like, well, these villains are all working together, but who are they and what are they? Like, we didn't have time to develop who they are. Here, we have too much time to develop who these characters are, because it's not like they did a Deadshot movie and a Harley Quinn movie. Well, they did that later. Or a Killer Croc movie. It's like, no, you would do a Batman movie, you'd introduce these characters, and then they'd all team up. Granted, you don't always need to do that, obviously, because when Gunn did it, it did work. But there's room to move around. The issue, what they should have done, if you're Sony and you have the rights to all of the Spider-Man pantheon of characters, except for I don't know if they do have like full rights anymore to Spider-Man himself because of the contract with Marvel Studios, but like, why were you not doing a Miles Morales live-action movie? Why were you not doing a Spider-Woman live-action movie? There were so many opportunities to do movies like that with the protagonist Spider characters. You could have done Spider-Man 2099. Like, that would have been a great movie to do. Like, what you end up with that is you can play with the production design. Like, there's so much you can do there. But they don't do that. They play with the villains. And I think what it comes down to is looking back at the Sony emails that kind of, you know, that leaked, what was it, like 10 years ago at this point. Sony wanted to do a Sinister Six movie. That has been their big, we are going to get this done thing. Like, they want to make a movie about the Sinister Six. The repeated failing to make that movie about the Sinister Six is something that is harming them. And we've seen it get done in other mediums. We saw the MCU, you know, Spider-Man No Way Home is basically a Sinister Six movie. Like, it's a Sinister Five, but it kind of is, like, it's almost there. If you had one more villain, it's a Sinister Six. If you look at, like, what was the other one? The video game, Spider-Man for the PS4. That has the Sinister Six as the bad guy. You don't necessarily need to lead into introducing all these characters. You just need to make it that once they are introduced, we care about them. And we don't need to care about the villains. We need to care about Peter Parker. That's all that matters. So this is what they were trying to do here. They were clearly trying to build to a Sinister Six. And for a second time now, that has failed. I think they need to revisit... Oh, okay, go ahead. You have a truck. I forgot you have right away. They clearly need to get their priorities in order. And I think for Sony, this is much bigger than just Spider-Man, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about this before the movie starts. They don't have a major franchise in the way that, like, yes, Marvel is a huge major franchise for Disney. But say Thunderbolts doesn't work next year, I doubt we're in a situation where Thunderbolts bombs and Captain America bombs and Fantastic Four bombs. Plus, they also have, you know, they have Star Wars. They have, you know, and beyond that, I think you're guaranteed to make money next year on the year after on Doomsday. Like, that's the big issue that we need to address with this. The big issue we need to address is that they don't have a franchise. And until they fix that, they're going to have a problem. Don't see Kraven. It's not worth your time. Just go watch anything else instead. We'll wrap up there for today. Our next episode we'll be doing tomorrow morning. We'll be talking about, what's that one called? Creature Commandos. But until then, have a great rest of your week.